Welcome to Lead Today with me, Kalina. Let's talk leadership. Hello and welcome. This series is absolutely going to be the longest by far, and it's one that I have been so afraid to embark upon for a variety of personal reasons, and that lets me know that it's really important. I've just been so hesitant because of my own stories to start this path, and so just even recording this is a win in my own universe, in my own mind. So thank you for listening and creating space for this podcast. Initially years ago, which is surreal to say, it started because I wanted a place to have a voice for. I felt silenced in many ways at the time. Again, all very personal. And this podcast has been such a beautiful outlet for me to explore new ideas, research, meet new people, learn from conversations that with just incredible, wise, brilliant guests. And so this podcast has just gone over and above any of my expectations already. And I want to thank you for being along for that journey with me, because it's truly been such a safe outlet. I can just speak to you, and it's I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants to build community and space around their own voice. But it's not for the faint of heart, because you really are putting something out there that then stays out there and is, depending on what you choose to talk about, vulnerable or not at all vulnerable, and that's up to you. And so, of course, just as anything in life, it is what you make it. And for me, it's been easier to skirt around this topic because it's been the hardest part of my life for the past 4 years. But really before that, because if you listen to previous episodes, I talk about just how my cycle was challenging. And I know so many women struggle today with challenges around menstruation, around fertility, around pregnancy. It's such a touchy, emotional topic that I don't take lightly, and so much of it is experienced in the shadows. And part of me thinks that it's meant to be, in the sense that there's so much growth that happens in darkness, in the shadows, by yourself, that you can't really do in the public sphere. You wouldn't, in the light of day with people all around you, you wouldn't have the same introspection. You wouldn't have the same wisdom that comes from solitude, quiet, even maybe feelings of isolation. You wouldn't have the same growth. And so it's an interesting thing for me to say, let's talk about this, when so much of what's experienced in this realm of women's lives is in the darkness. And I think that that's where it's meant to be in some ways. I think that's how I think the idea of going into the cave, especially for menstruation, which is week 1 of a pregnancy journey, which is so interesting that, preparing for this miracle starts in the darkness. It starts with a shedding. It starts with a possibility that hasn't occurred yet. And what you're doing is creating an ideal environment for new life by shedding the old. And so how interesting that week 1 of a pregnancy really is actually clearing the way, a shedding, a letting go of, instead of sort of an adding on, or the way we think about it, right? Creation. Well, actually, it starts with this active shedding and letting go. So I would say, if you are in a, and what I want to do with this series, I know this is just the first episode, and so maybe I need to set it up a little bit. What I want to do is make these episodes decently short and sweet, because I want you to be able to really tune into yourself. I think for me, the journey toward motherhood has been so much about tuning into myself amidst the noise. There are so many opinions, things to listen to, read, people's thoughts, that I don't want to be another thought, that's putting you in a direction or another by insinuating or directly stating things I want to share with you in this series. But I certainly think that the journey toward motherhood, through pregnancy, through even before pregnancy, right? This week one is this preparation for a miracle to occur. So much of it is about who you're becoming as a mother. And then when the baby arrives, sure, it's 100% about the baby, right? And yet, interestingly enough, while you're pregnant, before you get pregnant, it's your environment, the terrain of not just your body, but your mind is 100% what the baby is. While the baby is inside of you, it's 100% you, in a sense, right? You're seen as one person. And your mind is directly influencing the mind of the baby. Your thoughts, your emotions, your physical state, your emotional state, it's all directly transferred to the baby. And even if you look at childhood development, there's some interesting work done on nervous system of a baby, and how even, 6 months, 9 months in, the baby is looking to you as the mother for that nervous system regulation, even when they're not in your body any longer. And also, an interesting thing, that a baby's cells are with you forever. So if you've experienced loss, which I so understand, and I have a few episodes on it, an interview with a woman doing some amazing work in this space, and a little bit about my experience with loss. And if, week one feels like a loss because you are menstruating, and so it's sort of this, feels like the possibility of last month is being shed away, and it's this death and renewal idea. There's some sadness there, and there certainly can be, for good reason. And if you've experienced sadness in this preparation for your miracle, all I can say is my heart is so there. I totally get it. I get it at a level that words can't even express. It's just devastating. And if this is your first month or third month or 26th month or 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is, however many times you've been in this exact place of week one, wanting a miracle, praying for a miracle, changing everything. Women are just so remarkable with how committed they will get when they want to become a mother, that you're willing to do anything. And that determination is just so powerful. And yet, this week one, where it feels like the possibility of last month is going away, and there's this new possibility on the horizon, but it's not here yet, it can be really hard. And so I think we have to sit in it. We have to be in it. It's so easy to want to be at a different place, at a different time, at a different stage. If only I was here. If only I was, if only I get past the 12 weeks pregnant mark. If only I can, once I'm a mom. It's so easy to look to the future and think then it'll be okay. And then we're not in the present moment. And believe me when I say, I there almost aren't words, or at least my vocabulary just doesn't give true justice to the real sadness, deep sadness and disappointment. There can be layers of shame, anger, guilt, fear. Every negative emotion pretty much shows up in week one here, in this preparation, in this shedding, where you physically might be tired and feeling depleted and feeling like you're, well, in a sensitive place, because you are. And yet it's the beginning. It's the foundation for a miracle to occur. And so how interesting, right? That in the preparation, in this first week, it can feel dark. It can feel all of the negative things that we're so trained to avoid, because pain and discomfort are bad, and we want comfort and happiness, good, and yet your ability to sit in this, I think actually prepares you for everything that's to come, because not 1 week of this process will be without some form of mental, emotional, physical, spiritual difficulty, you know, challenge of some kind, asking you to grow, asking you to evolve. That's what this whole journey is. And so if there's a particular week that's really hard for you, that sticks with you, week one could be one of them, because there's so much wrapped up in endings and beginnings, and it's sort of both, right? You feel like you're ending again the possibility of something, but it's the ground, we're laying the groundwork for the next thing. And so you're in this like, wait, there's another month coming, but this thing didn't happen for me right now, and where am I? And so if you can shift attention to, yeah, okay, this is laying the groundwork for this month, but also really be present to what you're letting go of, it's a tall order. It's a big ask. It's hard. I think that's what we're being called to do in week one. So, as I said, I want to keep these episodes really laser focused on a particular theme for the week, mostly because, I mean, how much else do you have to think about? And to just come back to this for this week is, I think, enough of, okay, clear the way, new cycle, fresh opportunity. That means you have to release the old. You have to be okay with releasing the old. You have to allow that. Maybe you write about that. Maybe you talk about that with someone. Maybe you draw about that, but you've got to somehow have an outlet for the old, or else that stagnant energy, those stagnant thoughts, that approach is going to hinder that new ground that we're laying for what's to come. And so how can you start? And I want to kind of have a question to consider here. And so we've talked about what the body is doing, right? We've talked about how we can translate that to the mind and what you're thinking. And so a question might be, how can you nurture your body, mind, and spirit to release what's no longer needed in order to create the space for something new? And it's the same thing like when we clean out a closet, right? And then you feel super relieved and you can put all your new clothes in, or if you transfer clothes for different seasons, or when you clean up the kitchen, there's this really beautiful feeling when you clean up a room, isn't there? And so that's what we're doing here. And we want to clean it fully. Don't leave anything behind, really clean it up so that the next few weeks and months and years, that's what we have uniquely as women, is the opportunity to do this every month, or whatever your timeline is. And so if this week feels devastating, I hear you. If it's been devastating many times before, believe me, I've been there for years and years. And there's some level of comfort in knowing that you're not alone, but really, it doesn't change the depths of the disappointment and despair that you're in. And I'm not trying to, I don't want to. I'm not trying to make this lighthearted. It's not supposed to be a lighthearted week. It's just not. And that's knowing that you're brave and strong enough, capable enough, that you can face the darkness of week one, the darkness, both, retreating, wanting to be less social, being more in your own self, wanting to be alone, right? The acknowledgement of that, the embracing of that, is where the evolution, the growth for this week is. And so, look, let's not sugarcoat it. This week is cleaning up the kitchen sink, cleaning everything out so that you can begin anew. And if that requires tears, if that requires some real looking yourself in the mirror and feeling like you're going through it, then that's what it requires. And I wish you grace as you go through that. But I wouldn't take it away from anyone by trying to act like it's not what it is, or trying to make it something it's not. It's the dark, deep, individual work that you're doing this week. And so how can you nurture yourself? Because also becoming a mom and that whole process is about slowing down and nurturing yourself in order to be able to do that for another. And that's not a prerequisite. Lots of people become moms without any introspection or process, conscious process. And that's okay. That's their journey. And you're on your own journey, and I don't pretend to be on the exact same journey as you, but I think what I've figured out to some degree through what I've been through is your willingness to look where you're currently at in the eye and be honest about it is going to be a true asset to you throughout this entire journey. So I again wish you so much grace and patience for yourself, nurturing for yourself as you go through this week, thinking about ways that you can nurture your body, mind, and spirit in order to clean out what needs to be cleaned out so that next week we can chat about continuing to prepare that foundation. But this week is a letting go. And so I hope you can really open your hand, so to speak, to let go of all that needs to be released fully and completely so that we can move forward in this process with a clean slate. Thank you so much for being here. The fact that I've been dreading this episode. See, it's funny, it's like look things in the eye. Yeah, I've been dreading this episode for years. So absolutely, I get the difficulty in looking this in the eye. And I'm so glad that I did today. And I hope that with continued patience and love for yourself, you're able to start to do the same. And it's a process. So thank you for being here. I hope to see you next time as we embark upon a series for the books. This is going to be a 40-week big one, and life-changing for sure. So I hope you'll come along for the ride with me. Take good care until I see you next.